So welcome back, Mike Geo, to my Christian podcast, and we are really glad that you wanted to share with us about your new Christian song called Be Refined, and also to continue sharing about your testimony. So Mike, you were a guest speaker on the 25th podcast of mine, and you already had introduced yourself as a Christian artist. And today you are to tell us about what your new song, Be Refined, is about. Now, Mike, I had the privilege to listen to your new song that addresses the common misconception that one must always appear happy to be considered faithful or holy within Christian communities. Mike, can you elaborate more about this and why you wrote this song?
Hey George, thanks for having me on the podcast again. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on here and share my music with your listeners on such an awesome podcast. So yeah, the line of the song is, sometimes church can feel so phony, like if you're not happy, you're not holy. And sometimes in church or Christian communities with your friends, wherever, a lot of times the response when you say that you feel depressed, anxious, worried, etc., is that, are you praying enough? Are you in the Word enough, reading the Bible? Don't you trust Jesus with your circumstances? And although these things are important and are factors in it, there are other factors, whether it be chemical imbalances sometimes you went through traumatic things in your life or traumatic things recently, like the loss of a loved one. There's many different things that influence it, and what happens is we start to feel that feeling of, if I'm not happy, then I'm not holy, because it means I'm not doing enough, which is sort of like, it verges on works-based almost. And the thing is, there are many things that could cause these feelings, and it causes us to wear a mask around people and in church, and you feel like you have to put the smile on, and you have to, you got to be happy. And I think it's something that we should normalize, expressing how we feel and being honest and being true to what we feel, because, we feel that way maybe for a reason, and God wants to use us to express these things and maybe be able to help other people. So, and most definitely help other people, actually.
So Mike, thanks for what you have shared, which is very interesting indeed, and for explaining about the common misconception that one must always appear happy to be considered faithful or holy. Now, Mike, the lyrics to your new song, Be Refined, is about being refined through brokenness, drawing parallels to the prodigal son story. Can you explain further about the lyrics to your song?
Yeah, sure. So in the story of the prodigal, obviously, the story of the prodigal is completely engrossed in brokenness from both sons. So the father, has the estate, and one son wants to share, gives us son to share, goes up, squanders it, and right there is the brokenness. And obviously, he wants to come back because he's having trouble out there on his own, and when he comes back, he's expecting his father to not accept him in the way that the father does, which is throwing a party and celebrating that he came back. And one side is, through that brokenness, the prodigal learns that the father loves him unconditionally, something that he wouldn't have realized without that brokenness, and that allows the prodigal son to have empathy for others, and hopefully also have unconditional love for someone else, and be able to suppress the urge for bitterness and unforgiveness and anger. So through brokenness, you are being refined to be more like God and have more of God's attributes. Now the other son is jealous that the son that squandered everything is getting a party. He's like, oh, I never had a party thrown for me, and I've been the perfect son. And in that, you see that even the one who thinks they're perfect, that thinks they're doing everything right is also broken. That's jealousy, envy, and it just shows you that whether you are just going and shamelessly living in the brokenness, or you're perfect and trying your hardest, you're still broken. And whether you're trying or you're not trying, Father still loves you unconditionally and wants you to come back to Him, humble yourself, repent. And of course, a lot of times the brokenness is not just obviously us going and doing things in sin, but it's also just the way we feel, depressed, sad, anxious, which is ultimately because of the fact that there's sin in the world after the fall. So it does all stem from sin, but it's not all because of our actual sin. But yeah, and that's why I added that in there, because there's so much to pack into that one line.
Thanks, Mike, for explaining the lyrics to your new song, Be Refined, and also for enlightening us about the story of the prodigal son. Mike, your song touches on the issues of mental health and the challenges a person faces when having these issues. What kind of support Christians are to give to persons with mental health issues? And especially, what spiritual support is needed?
Yeah, so the way that we could, as Christians, can support people with mental health issues is one, is encouraging them to be open about it. We don't want people to suppress it. We don't want people to feel like they have to be happy because happiness is a sign of holiness, or is a sign of being favored by God, or is a sign of being blessed. Happiness is not a sign of being blessed. Being depressed is not a sign of being blessed. That has nothing to do with it. So, what we can do, one, encourage people to be open about it. Two, talk about it. Listen. That's the most important thing. You have to listen to where they're coming from. Three is address it in a spiritual way, which, yes, it is through the word. It is through prayer. But I think you want to do it in a way where you're specifically learning in the Bible about how there's so many people that suffered, from Job to David to even Jesus himself, suffered more than anyone could imagine, emotionally, physically, spiritually. So these are the things that, one, you want to go through, and say it's okay to feel this way. You're not wrong to feel this way. You're not bad because you feel this way. Okay? So you got to establish that with people. Then I think that if this is a chronic thing the person's going through, which should be revealed if the person is able to feel open to express himself over time. If it's a chronic thing they're feeling, then you can start thinking about therapy. It's okay to go to therapy, whether it be a Christian therapist or just a regular old therapist. It does help you discover certain thought patterns that you have from childhood that are causing you subconsciously just make yourself drag down in anxiety and depression. And a lot of times between dealing with a therapist, dealing with your friends, dealing with people who have spiritual influence over your life, you can sometimes come to the conclusion, maybe there is a chemical imbalance. Maybe it's just learned behaviors that could be worked through. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is encouraging people to be open about it, because that is the most important step to helping people and changing people's lives.
Once again, Mike, thanks for giving us precious tips on how to handle mental health issues and not to be ashamed about it, but it is important to seek help. So thanks a lot, Mike, for being on my podcast. But before we end this interview, I would like you to encourage people with mental health issues sharing relevant scriptures or stories that emphasize how God's grace and transformative power often work through moments of vulnerability and weakness.
Thanks for having me, George, and thanks for creating this space where we could openly speak about these things. So, one, some Bible passages. First, David, he was on the run. They were trying to kill him, hiding out in random places. This was not easy for David. We can be pretty sure that he was going through many, many emotions that many of us feel, probably much worse. Two, Jesus on the cross said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Quoting Psalm 22, which was written by David. Now, that's the Son of God. That is God himself saying, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" I mean, think about the pain, the anguish, the physical pain, the spiritual pain, the emotional pain he felt in that moment. And that was all for us. 3, 1 Kings 19:4. This is Elijah, and it says, while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, he came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. "I've had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors." Then he lay down under the bush, fell asleep. So that's Elijah literally saying, "I've had enough. Take my life. I can't do it no more." And you know what happened? An angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and by his head was some bread baked over hot coals. So this was warm bread. I mean, who doesn't love warm bread, right? And a jug of water. So God refreshed him when he was at his worst. With just the simple things. With the things that you just need, and it was enough. So, with that in mind, when you're in those moments, turn to God, speak to your friends, talk to your spiritual leaders, and do not be afraid to speak up. Just like Elijah, say it and get help. Thanks, George. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks once again, Mike Geo, for being with us during this podcast and for sharing your testimony, experiences, and about your new song, Be Refined. Mike, thanks again. You're always welcome back to share about the Christian faith, and I encourage the listeners to listen to Mike's new song, Be Refined.
Thanks.
Sometimes I feel lost, my thoughts so dark, don't know how to feel alive. I used to feel found, but now I'm scared that I got left behind. Feels heavy inside, the weight drags me down. They say walk by faith, but I can't get my feet off the ground. Sometimes church can feel so phony, like if you're not happy, you're not holy. Makes you feel like you're losing faith, but like the prodigal you'll find. If you're not broken, you can't be refined. Be refined. Ooh, be refined. Ooh. I cry out to God, is his whisper here, or did it disappear? Have I lost my mind, or just my way? Is he really always near? 'Cause I'm out in the wilderness, wandering for years. Am I filled with power and love, or a spirit of fear? Sometimes church can feel so phony, like if you're not happy, you're not holy. Makes you feel like you're losing faith, but like the prodigal you'll find. If you're not broken, you can't be separate the truth from all the lies? Can you chase out all the demons trapped inside? Can you stitch me up and bring me back to life? Do you even hear me? Do you even hear my cry? Sometimes church can feel so phony, like if you're not happy, you're not holy. Makes you feel like you're losing faith, but like the prodigal you'll find. If you're not broken, you can't be refined. Be refined, yeah. Be refined.
Be Refined by Mike Geo. Thank you, Mike, for providing the song for this podcast.
The book titled Yes, I Will Follow Him, which can be found on Amazon and other platforms, recounts the personal journey of George Calleja, a Christian author, as he evangelized in the USSR. It emphasizes the significance of embracing the affirmative response to follow Jesus by saying yes. This Christian book is highly recommended for teenagers.